Okay. So back to the grindstone. Okay, so basically the work that we're doing is just trying to undo bad habits that we got into very young. And one of those is just the way that we stand. And so we tend to stand with the legs like two pillars, because when we were little and we were sitting down, when we couldn't stand, we saw everything going on up there. You know, there was like a level, the level of other children or adults that we aspired to. So we wanted to stand in order to reach that level rather than because we wanted to move around. And so when we did stand, we just straightened the legs and try to make ourselves as tall as possible. So in Tai Chi, we're just trying to just draw ourselves down to the ground. So instead of the legs pushing us up, they're actually pulling us down in order to get the center of gravity low, but also just to establish a relationship with the ground rather than rejecting it all the time. We're just trying to pull ourselves down to it and have some sense that our deep energy is talking to it. The ground is talking to us and we're listening and we're talking back. So for that, we need to just basically, we bend the leg in order to move. So instead of pushing ourselves away from the ground with the legs, we're pulling ourselves towards the ground all the time. So this is why we prefer to pull with the leg in order to move, because it pulls me towards my foot. And really, yeah, so what we're doing, we're just adopting different physical habits in an effort to actually change the habits of our mind. So we're bending the legs in order to move ourselves, to try and encourage our mind to consider the ground as something worth coming down to and communicating with. And so for that, your practice really needs to bleed out of the time of practice and into your daily life. Because otherwise you just have these two lives, one which is your practice time, where you're doing things better and properly, and then one of your normal time where you're just doing things poorly and mindlessly. So we just want the mindful aspect to seep into the mindless life. So this was Dr. Chi's big thing. You know, remember, 8 hours not enough. So his recommendation was to find some things that you do all the time or regularly in your normal life, and just make an effort to do them more mindfully. Yeah, so I'm picking my way from foot to foot. Exactly, you know, if I was lifting objects, you know, like rearranging, like laying the table, for example, or taking away the dirty plates after the meal is finished, then your mind would just naturally just go into the object that you're picking up, because we're so used to leading with the hand. So we want that feeling here. My mind is in the foot that I'm actually pulling towards, like it's something precious that I'm going to lift up. So we bring that same mindful care into our use of the feet. And then you find the ground, it's no longer the hard, flat surface underneath your feet that's conveniently propping you up. It's actually something that has real texture and real richness that you're always interested in. And another important thing about pulling with the leg is that when I pull the ground here, I'm also pulling this part, I'm also pulling the top of the leg towards the foot. And so it's encouraging the leg to draw the spine across the sacroiliac from the sacrum and into it. So it's actually encouraging the lower lordosis of the spine to flatten out, which is what we want. So you could say the main thing in Tai Chi really is just unifying the body, unifying upper and lower. So I just have a sense that I'm just one thing from the feet all the way to the fingertips and the top of the head. Yeah, so when I pull here, it's pulling this down into the leg. So my spine is really blending into my leg. So this is the main thing, really, I think, you know, because everything this is what John would call getting your bum in. Yeah? And everything stems from that. If you get that right, then most of the other things in Tai Chi will sort of fall into place naturally. But if you don't get that right, then everything will be a bit of a struggle. You'll have to manufacture it with your ego. And so you'll be producing copies all the time. And nothing will be authentic. Yeah. So I pull, and this is just, ooh, it oozes, yeah. And so as I pull with the leg, what it does, it would naturally turn me this way, yeah? Because as I pull, it's trying to pull this down into the leg, yeah? So it starts doing that, but then it's the spirit that really makes you come back round because you've got real interest in what it is you're moving towards. So I pull here and it's pulling me like this, yeah? And then as I start moving, my spirit just comes round naturally to face the direction I'm moving in. Otherwise, I'm liable to bang into something or confront something I'm not ready for. So this way and then this way. So just feel it. There's light here and then just reeling round. Yes, it's always trying to be aware that it's not physical exercise primarily. We're using the body to get to the mind and the spirit. So, wow. Yeah, so it starts off askance, and then you slowly come round to face the truth, if you like. So it's like here, oh, dare I? And then, yeah, it's okay, I'll come round, yeah. Ooh. And just feel this area, the lower back area. That's the problem, really. So we just want that to just really relax. So the sacroiliacs really need to loosen. The sacrum should feel as though it's free. And then your bum can come in naturally with just the heaviness of the sacrum will make it pull down and will flatten out the lower back. And it's difficult because we think we've got it. We think we're doing it right, but we're still considering the legs as something that comes between us and the ground. Yeah, so there's something happens to the mind when your legs really integrate. Basically, the mind stops. This is what we're looking for. So the ego, the thinking, talking mind, requires there to be a break between me and the ground. Because if I was unified and I was really touching the ground, not just with my feet, but with the whole of me, then the ground would just naturally drain me. I wouldn't be able to talk to myself. The ground wouldn't let me. Yeah. Yeah, so these are just all insights that basically they come through meditation. Yeah. Because it's only for like, after you've been sitting for an hour and a half or so that you actually enter that sort of spirit space where the mind is just naturally quiet, but everything is moving. You can get glimpses when you're doing Tai Chi or when you're moving physically. But then they really need to be looked at in meditation. Okay, so now let's just come to riding horse. So just remember those directions. So sink the shoulders, heavy elbows, loosen the hips, and concentrate the spirit. And concentrating the spirit is just very similar to just putting the mind in the Danjian. Yeah, so for most people, if you say to them, okay, get spirited, yeah, they'll get excited or they'll charge themselves up or they'll scream or yell or get angry. Yeah? So we want to get into spirit by concentrating it. It's but almost like squeezing it into a smaller space than it's comfortable with. So the spirit feels like it's trying to burst out all the time. And then to use it as all you have to do is let go of that, and the spirit will just fly. Yeah. So something in your mind is just enclosing, is getting smaller and more concentrated, more focused. It's a bit like, the central vision and the peripheral vision. So just imagine you're really looking at something, there's an object, and you're just really gazing at it with your central vision. And then just feel the peripheral vision, so the blurry bit around the edge. So you want to be able to give both of those equal attention. Yeah. And so which is the bit we normally ignore? It's the peripheral vision. So that's the one we need to privilege in order to get a better balance. Yeah. So by focusing in with my mind, I'm exposing the edges where the magic happens. Yeah? So when you're focusing, in a way, you're just trapping the part of yourself you don't need so that the mysterious can open up around the edges. So sink the shoulders, heavy elbows, loosen the hips, and concentrate the spirit or mind in the dantian. And then just bring the mind to the 3 ward-offs. So the ward-off in the arms. So it says in the classics, the arms are bent, but they're trying to straighten. Yeah. So my arms are trying to do that because my energy is bursting to come out, but I am actually containing it. Yeah. So ward off is a way of concentrating the energy in a way. So I've got ward off in my arms. I've got ward off in my legs. Yeah. And that's really important because without that, you're always basically straightening the legs. Yeah. And so feeling as though you're really on the outside edges of your feet. So the feet are doing this. Calf regel. The foot in Hebrew is called calf regel, which means spoon of the leg. So these spoons are cutting into the ground like this, and just naturally then funneling energy from the ground up into my dantian. Yeah, so there's part of me that's obviously straightening my legs, otherwise I'd fall down. But I'm concentrating, I'm trying to foreground the part of me that's trying to get down and embrace the ground. I just take this straightening for granted because I've been doing it since I was a year old. This I'm sort of not so familiar with. And then just feel you really need to loosen across here. Otherwise, the ward off in the legs will make your bum stick out. Yeah. Which is the big sin in Tai Chi. So just really relaxing across the sacrum, across the sacroiliacs. And then this feeling that the legs are coming up like this and attaching on top of the sacrum. So your legs are making like a heart shape. The same way that your arms are making a heart shape. Yeah, so it's not so much a circle as more like it goes in and then comes in at the spine, at the back. I've got these meaty shoulders. And then the third ward off is just the one that's in the spine. So instead of a vertical spine, instead of being at attention, in attention posture where we have a vertical spine, I'm just bowing the spine this way. So I'm just pulling the middle of the back a little to make a curve here, a receptive curve, a bit like a satellite dish. Yeah. So I'm just becoming a satellite dish in relation to the other person, in relation to the world, but also in relation to the ground. And so I'm collecting messages. I'm collecting signals. And so the Danchen needs to draw in and the Min Meng needs to press back a little. And that should all happen naturally. And then my spine just blends into the legs. I lose the bottom part of the S of the spine, and I now have an S from the ground all the way to the top of my head. Yeah, so we just need enough physical strength to be able to hold this posture with that sense of letting gravity pull me down into it. If I'm trying to straighten my legs all the time, you know, we can tell ourselves, oh, it's because my legs hurt, you know, it's because I don't have enough strength, but it's not really. It's because the mind is just really unhappy coming down to earth. It's very unhappy to lose its ability to think. Okay, now just let's breathe it. And just watch the mind. So again, it's a physical movement, but we're really trying to train the mind. So I just want a mind that is sensitive to energy. So a mind that feels the movement, sees the movement before it actually happens. Yeah. So I'm seeing the return. As I pull into myself, it's already returning. So this movement is a foregone conclusion. It's just inevitable, and the same with the return. So my mind is watching the movement, but not the movement of the arms, the movement of the energy. So something is already squeezing out and my body catches up with it. Something is already coming in and my body catches up with it. So we're just trying to wake up to the detail that is normally obliterated with our noisy minds. Ooh. So we want a mind that is neither for nor against. When you've got like a normal mind that is for or against, then things become a bit too extreme. Yeah. So when you're for something, that's all you want, and you want to get all the stuff you're against out of it. So we just want to feel, you know, that the yin yang symbol structure, so the little spot of the opposite inside the phase. So as I squeeze in here, that little I in the middle of the yang or the yin is trying to burst out, and it's that So nothing is ever pure black or white. It always contains that I. And that, so the more white it becomes, the more the black is just trying to burst out of itself. So it's a bit like concentrating the spirit. So I'm being pulled back in. And then that enclosed I is bursting to get out. And if you just want to intensify it, which is always a good idea, just breathe through the small hole in the mouth. So just make it a bit difficult. And remember, we'd like to become possessed by the exercise. So we get so into it. That's all there is. There's just the exercise. There's just the movement. And that only happens when you can become still inside it. So your stillness encourages the world you inhabit to move and to flow. When you're noisy inside, you're always trying to get the world around you to stabilize and become predictable. So respiro ergo sum. I breathe, therefore I am. That's the breathing. It's an amazing thing. You know, we have to do it, otherwise we'd die. But we can choose how we do it. And just think, you know, for most of us, that first breath was really traumatic when we were a baby. So the chances are we got it quite wrong. And the chances are that we've been repeating that wrong ever since. So my brother's son, Harley, he was born in a birthing pool. So he came out of his mother into water and then was slowly taken out of the water. And he didn't cry. They said he was born with a smile on his face and just started breathing naturally. They didn't need to smack his bum. And my brother said the first time he actually cried was when they took him home from the hospital, when they left the hospital. And it was like a cold day, so just coming out into the cold air, that's what made him cry. And he was such a lovely, balanced kid. He's a bit fucked now because he's just smoking too much weed. But hopefully he'll grow out of it. Yeah, so just slowly come into those two muscles either side of the lower spine. So the spinal erectors, these are the two main muscles that we would like to get working. Yeah, so when we do this phase, it's easy to feel those muscles bringing the energy up into the chest, expanding the chest. But we really want to get them to seep down the legs as well. So basically from my heel to my shoulders and my head and my hands, those muscles dominate. So as you lean back, just try and connect with the heels. And then when you pull forwards, try not to break that connection, just stretch it. Yeah, so here those muscles are stretching, they're relaxing and stretching. There's always tone. And then they just contract. They just start like a piece of elastic. When you let it go, it will retract. But I don't want to pull them up out of my legs. I want them to stay with the leg because I want my leg to be a part of me. Okay, and now let's just bring it back to riding horse. Okay, so again, sink the shoulders, heavy elbows, loosen the hips, cutting the ground with the spoons of the feet, of the legs, and concentrating the spirit. So just almost a feeling that you're round like a target, and this is just the center of the target. Yeah, so we normally think that the Dantian very much is like the bottom. Yeah. So when people are thinking, how can I get my mind down here? There, it's so low. But it should just feel like it's your middle, because when you integrate the legs and the upper body, it is your middle. And then just feeling these two muscles as just really just dominating the body. So just either side of the spine, and they really reach down to the legs, yeah? So there's like a skeletal reality. So my skeleton, the way it's standing, the sacrum, the spine, but there's also a muscular reality that's very important because that's where the libido is expressed. So the two things that we're trying to wake up in Tai Chi, in John's Tai Chi, spirit and libido, and they're both very different, yeah? So the spirit is this sort of fine, sort of Tinkerbell type energy that just starts everything going. Whereas the libido is like this deep, rumbling, it's your drives and desires that come from the id, from the unconscious, yeah? So it's deep and it's strong and it's very much something that is not considered in polite society. So this is why you just need to do your own work, yeah? And it's very much from these muscles. And again, it's a very different mind to the mind of normal life and also to the mind of spirit. Yeah, so we're just trying to just establish flows through the body, but specifically through this muscle train. So from the heel up the spinal erector and into the arm. It can go up into either arm, doesn't really matter. And so the way the muscles work when you're using it like this, they don't so much contract and expand. It's not this sort of motion where I'm shortening a muscle to bend the lever and then releasing it, or tightening this muscle to go the other way. It's more like peristalsis. So it's almost like there's like a pulse that comes up, a ripple. So the energy ripples through the muscle. So the muscle needs to be relaxed but toned. If it's too tight, the muscle, the energy will block. Yeah. And so it's flows and continuities that express through the muscular body. Yeah, so in that David Bohm, his famous book, Wholeness in the Implicate Order, he talks about how basically we have a mind. Our mind has been trained to differentiate between things. So to split the world into a collection of disparate objects, to discriminate and differentiate. Yeah. And it's built into the language. So this is what he says, our language privileges nouns, it privileges things. So he's proposing a new language which privileges the verbs, like poets do, yeah? And so it's the actual action that's important, not the thing, not the things that are interacting. So what we want to do is just relax so that the mind can just be aware of flows and connections and continuities, to integrate rather than differentiate. I came across a beautiful quote from Wittgenstein. I am in the world, as is my eye in its visual field. Yeah. So the eye is just there, just seeing. It's just aware of what it sees. It's not aware of itself. There's no self-reflection. Yeah? So this is how we want to be. We just want to be in the world, just with it, observing it, with no sense of no sense that I'm separate from it. Yeah? And that's just really difficult. And we begin just by getting down to the ground and making a connection with that thing that we've spent a whole life disconnecting from. So just feel gravity just pulling you down. And then just feel the ground just reaching up through you, like a plant that's just growing up through your bones, or just wrapping around you like an ivy, and just coming all the way up, and it's reaching up the spine and down the arms. Okay, now let's just try turning. So trying not to turn the hips, just turning the shoulders and using these muscles in the lower back. Yeah, so there's like almost like I'm trying to look into those muscles. I just want to become aware of them. And when you do become aware of them, the mind changes. It just becomes a different mind. It's sort of tough and determined. So just feel those muscles, but also feel their length so that it's pulling here, but all the way from my heel. The part of the muscle that's in the lower back, that's where it starts, if you like, but we want it to really extend down to the ground and all the way to the top of the head and down the arms. So, ooh. And just let your spine tip. Yeah. So just let. Yeah, so there's the two realities. There's the structural reality, which is in your bones, if you like. So you can feel that, like the heel really pressing into the ground. But then the muscular reality, which is this snake, these two pythons. And they're both very different. Yeah, so the muscles clothe the skeleton. So you're always at least two minds. One that just feels the sort of the stable hardness of the skeleton, the bones, and another that feels this sort of ripply, thick muscularity. Okay, so let's just bring it back. Now just feel those muscles, yeah? So they're very sort of animalistic. So when you get into them, you just feel like you have that sort of animal power. You're like a tiger that's just loping through the jungle, yeah? And you can just sense power in every movement, every gesture is coming from the whole body. So nothing's local. Even when it opens its eyes, yeah, and looks, there's this sense that it's just come through from the ground. This is what we would like when we get into that. So that's what I call the libido. It offends people almost as much as the word God, yeah? The word libido. I want to eroticize time. So this sense that, you know, your peristaltic energy is marking time. You're like, you know, like when you watch someone in slow motion, yeah. And you can just see the energy just leading the body, yeah. Like when you watch a sprinter and it's been really slowed down. Okay, and now let's just squat. So this is just really important. And just feel the lower back now, just bowing the other way. So the min meng is squeezing backwards. And just feel the mind. What needs to happen in my mind to just allow what I'm doing to spread my lower back? Yeah, so that discriminating, critical, judgmental mind is very much constructed from our lordosis, from that sort of the clever arch, the arrogance that makes us split from the ground. So here it's just, I'm just very much just down into my heels. I'm sitting on my heels. Yeah, so this should feel, you should be happier here than you are when you're standing, and certainly than you are when you're sitting in a chair. Just feel the dantian. The dantian is really close to the ground. And then just place the hands and just feel that cool relief that you should be feeling from the soles of the feet all the time. As soon as I place my hands on the ground comes up into my arm, comes up all the way to my back between my shoulder blades. I can feel it coming up into my cranium. So my whole skeleton becomes infused with the quality of the ground. Yeah, so the beauty of meditation, you know, you're sitting there and struggling with the mind. The mind is thinking to itself, you're trying to count your breaths, and you're generally not getting any further than 3. And it just seems like a complete struggle and waste of time. And yet, if someone came in the room and glanced at you, or even looked carefully at you, what they would see is a person at peace, a person sitting serenely. And so there's obviously that there inside you, as well as this mind that's refusing to become quiet. And so what meditation teaches, it doesn't teach you to quieten the mind, it just teaches you to ignore it. And so you're just with the body that's sitting serenely rather than with your train of thought. And then the train of thought quietens, but it never becomes completely quiet. And so it's like when we're here, yeah, there's part of us that's, you know, in discomfort because we're not used to sort of squatting like this. But you really want to be able to just stand back from that and just look at the part of you that's really, really enjoying and appreciating what it is you're actually doing. So there's part of you that's really smiling, that's just so happy just to be down here touching the floor. The privilege of being, because a lot of people can't squat. I've got a friend and her yoga teacher can't squat. She can't get into this even though she's a yoga teacher. Some people just, you know, they just don't have the right proportions to be able to get their heels on the ground when they squat. So be with the part of you that's peaceful and appreciative and full of gratitude, rather than the part of you that's moaning and criticizing. This is basically what meditation is about. So a mind that is only here, no past, no future. Time is here. The here and now. There's a lovely poem by Robert Grenier, very short. You know that phrase, no time like the present? And he's just put a full stop after no time. So no time like the present. And then when you are when that's all you are, you're just the present, you can feel it. It just becomes everything. It just becomes so intense. You just have like a presence that sort of overwhelms, because most people are somewhere other than in the present. And you just see interest everywhere. Everything fascinates. Because you don't have a memory of what it was. Yeah. It's a bit like my old ladies, you know, because their memories are going. I can tell them the same jokes every time I see them and get the same laughter. Okay, so let's just come up back into riding horse. And again, just that feeling of my feet are reaching down to the ground. Even though they're on the ground, there's still a sense that they're reaching down. Okay, and now let's try the squatting down and just coming back up with the spirit. Yeah, so just going down into a squat. So you can just go down and try and get down some distance, and then we want to come up by just throwing the head up. I throw like I'm trying to look at the ceiling, so I throw the head up, and then I just allow my legs to straighten and bring me up. So the legs, they're working, but it's the main thing is the spirit coming up. Yeah. So I'm going down here. I'm sort of curving up a little bit. I'm gathering. It's like I'm gathering energy, and then here, whee, the head flies up, and my legs straighten underneath it. So just feel it. It's really intense and real. So my head flies up, way. Yeah, so there's nothing like this exercise to just get the energy of the ground coming up all the way through you. You're almost like a siphon. Throwing the head back is the act of sucking the ground. I'm sucking the ground away. And again. And head away. So just feel it, you're just a channel coming from the ground, and there's all this energy just bleeding and seeping out of you. So you've got no boundaries. Yeah. So when it's like when you come up and you get to the top, for a moment, you're just energy away. So just feel like something you're emanating from the ground that the mind is beginning to contain. So the mind is the container, not the body. The body is extending. The arms are straightening. It's the mind that's bending them. Let's go down again. And yeah, so you're with the flow, you're with the process. You're not with your body. So the head, the spirit leads and everything follows. And then I can just slot into riding horse. And there's just this sense then that it's sort of, everything's in its rightful place. And everything's functioning naturally. Everything's working, everything's part of the process. There's very much a feeling that you're just this channel for this strong upsurge of energy that's just bleeding out of every pore of you. Okay, let's just go down again. And then up. Ooh. And then back into riding horse and just feel. So it's like riding horse is like a combination of the going down in order to come up and the up. Yeah? So like the outside of me is starting to go down, and the inside of me is actually coming up. Otherwise you lose the root. So there has to be this balance. Okay, so let's try again. So just down, feel the lower back spreading. And then just feel that the impetus that starts, ooh, something in you just flows upwards. And then you just settle into yielding mind, into riding horse, which is basically ward off, which is predominantly yielding. And it's alive, yeah? So those two components, spirit and libido. So libido is like that throb that's just inside the body, like a sort of just like a throb in the muscles, yeah? And then spirit is just that that sort of what John would have called delight, yeah? You're just suspicious that there's something in the room that you can't put your finger on, but you know it's there. That's what spirit's like. You can't pin it down. So spirit leads you. So when we're down there, it's that lift the head. We manufacture it by just lifting the eyes up because the spirit expresses in the eyes. So as you try and look up, the spirit will just go and take you. So the lightness, the spark is in the spirit, but the power is in the libido. Not just the body, but the body eroticized. Okay, and now let's just bring it up and just feel this as an intensification rather than a slackening. So standing to attention. And the difficulty here is just maintaining the connectivity through the buttocks and into the legs from these spinal erectors. Because the bum tends to go out a little bit when we straighten our legs. Yeah, so we just want to try it rather than looking at states. Yeah, I'm in the state of my bum sticking out. We just look at tendencies. Yeah, okay, my bum is stuck out, but it's tending to come in because I'm bending my legs. In my mind, I'm bending my legs. Yeah, so when you're standing, just imagine you're going to go straight into the form. Yeah, so what would happen? You'd bend the leg, you'd step, you'd move across. So you'd start flowing, yeah? And so when we're standing at attention, we're moving into the next bit. That's the feeling. We haven't just stopped and become still. There's still a sense of moving through time. Because as soon as you stop and become still, that's when the past and the future come in to the mind. You start thinking about what you're going to have for breakfast when we finish. So instead, just feel yourself just about to slip into the form. So the mind is still, but the body is always moving. It's always tending to move. It's always wanting to move. So the legs never lock out. I only do that if I want to produce an artificial stillness in order for my mind to think about something else. The legs are always wanting to pull me down because I want to go into the form. And even at the end of the form, you know, when you finish, you don't want that sense of relief. You want this sense that you're just about to slip into the next one. And then when you come out of it, you know, so now let's just finish. And so, you know, there's this sense that almost like the walk to the computer is almost like a form, yeah?